I get tunnel vision sometimes where I'm like, focused on a problem and I'm only seeing a couple things, and then I'll explain it to my coach and he's like, well, what about this? Like, oh yeah, that's an easy solution. Why didn't I think of that? Like, 'cause I'm too close to the problem right now, and having someone else's perspective on things is invaluable.
Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Justin Dossey. What's going on, man?
What's up? How's it going, man?
It's going. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So this would be a kind of cool conversation because you guys do marketing for real estate investors on different mediums and also help with the inbound leads. So first, why don't you give us a little background? How'd you even get involved in the real estate and marketing space?
Yeah, great question. That was actually like our second to last business that was created. We started out with call porter. So I came from the call center world. Worked in extended warranties. I did collections. I was one of those guys, unfortunately, for a little bit, but focused a lot on like car warranty stuff. And my business partner had left and started his own real estate journey and had gotten to the point where like he was missing calls consistently and losing out on deals because of it. So he had went in and hired some friends just to take his phone calls, trained them in real estate, how to answer everything. And I'd gotten to a point in my career where I was just done working for somebody else. And the opportunity had come up where I was able to leave, go work with my business partner, who happens to be my brother. And we kind of started there from call porter. From there, within like 2 to 3 years, he had been testing a just different form of marketing, right? Like, how do you make direct mail stand out? How do you make it better? How do you make it more personal so people actually open it? Because he had tried a couple different options in the past and just didn't have great luck with some of it. But the times he did handwritten stuff, he really enjoyed. So similar thing, like used it for himself internally and got to the point where it needed help growing. And that's where I came in and kind of took over all the day-to-day stuff over the last couple of years.
So now on Ballpoint Marketing, let's talk about that a little bit. So you guys do mailers.
Yep.
And they're written with a pen. So they look like they're truly handwritten, not like yellow letters type of.
Correct. Correct. They are actually written with a ballpoint pen.
How many machines you got running with pens on them? Like, how's that work?
So right now on the other side of the wall here, we've got 84, I believe, 80 to 84, somewhere around there, of these handwriting machines that this isn't the exact pen they use, but they'll literally hold the ballpoint pen and just write all day long. Letters, envelopes, postcards, door hangers. So we've kind of got something for anybody that is just either beginning or someone who's a little more seasoned, kind of everything in between. So they're over there running away right now. That's
cool. Now, what are you guys seeing on the mailer side that are getting the best results? Like, are you doing the full letters or postcards or door hangers? Like, what are you guys seeing on your side that you're getting the bulk of orders on?
I think part of it comes down to like what your budget is. And the way I look at it is like, you either have a lot of time and no money, or a lot of money and not as much time. So it kind of depends on like where you fall on that spectrum. So, if you're someone just starting out and you've got more time, like our door hangers are a great entry level position. I think our minimum order is $250 and they're like 60 cents a piece. So you're spending, $120 to get 250 of these. And we have people regularly pull deals off of them, right? But it is labor intensive. So you've got a lot of stuff to do. If you've got a little more money, then depending on the volume you're doing, either our handwritten postcards or the first class letters that we do are going to perform best. Currently for me, most of my deals are coming from our Americana postcards, which is kind of a newer release that we've done. It like highlights the 50s, 60s kind of American vibe with like diners, drive-ins, jukeboxes, all that kind of stuff, but it's all tied into real estate. That's where the bulk of our deals are coming from right now, in Baton Rouge currently.
Okay, cool. And now, so you have the Ballpoint Marketing, and then you have Call Porter. I talk about this a lot too. It's like, because we do the online leads, it's like, hey, you got to call leads really fast. Well, same thing whenever you're doing mailers, you got to friggin' answer the phone.
Oh, absolutely. That's why that company started. There's one specific deal, one specific story that my business partner lost out on, because it was a Friday. The call came in. He was out at the movies with his wife, and he's like, I'm going to spend some time with my wife, enjoy the time here. I'll call him tomorrow. Called him in the morning, and the guy was like, well, I wish you would have answered because you're the first one I called, but I sold it to someone who took the initiative to answer their phone. And it was like one of those moments where like, cool, lost out on 10 grand, right there just because I didn't answer the phone. So that's kind of why we made Call Porter, to make sure that people are answering their phones, they're getting to their leads as quick as possible and not, playing phone tag, answering voicemails, whatever, most people tend to do. So making sure that those calls are always answered.
Let me even ask you this. So on the Ballpoint Marketing side again, Do you guys supply lists and things like that too, or do you primarily just, you do?
Yeah. So we can do both. So we do the direct mail. This is a process that is kind of newer, that we've created. Actually, we didn't even talk about this beforehand, but so we've partnered with a couple companies to create like an all-inclusive, we call it lead engine, where we'll provide your data, which comes from Deal Machine. Good friends with the guys over there. So we'll provide the data. Resimply, we partnered with them to be a CRM for our clients. Call Porter will take all the calls, and Ballpoint sends all the marketing. So we can do pretty much anything within that wheelhouse to help make sure that someone has a well-rounded approach in their business.
That's pretty solid too, because especially like with Deal Machine too, for the guys starting out with the door hangers, if you have their software too, you can skip trace the people and try to get a hold of them then while you're dropping it on too, the guys that have long grass and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. All kinds of things that we can do with it. Yep.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, you can provide pretty much turnkey there. And then you're saying you provide a CRM on the backside too, so everything kind of integrates.
Correct. Yeah, with that, so that is with that specific program, Lead Engine. But yeah, it's all done through Resimply. I'm sure you're probably familiar with Sherrod and them. But yeah, we work very closely with them on that to provide like a almost out of the box system. There's still some work you have to do, but if you're an investor who doesn't want to go and set up everything on 5 different places, it's a great solution for that.
So I got to ask you, I'm browsing on YouTube before we were talking today.
Yeah.
And you're flying around on what do you call it, like a paramotor?
Yeah. I fly paramotors as much as I can, depending on the weather. But yeah, that's one of my things I do for fun is go and fly in the sky with a butt fan on and a little parachute.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know what this is, it's like those people that are gliding. Like if you see them on a beach and they got the big like canopy above them that boat's pulling them. Well,
Yep.
Justin doesn't have the boat. He straps a motor on his back, and it's a big fan pushing him.
Yep. And it is the most fun I've ever had. Of everything I've ever done, I try and get out as much as I possibly can. It's a great time.
Yeah, it looked really cool. And so basically, what you hook this fan up and like push it upward a little bit to get air going in, and you just run and you take off.
Yeah, essentially it's a glider. So it's becoming more popular. Like you'll see versions with a motor, without a motor. Like if you're by the beach, you can do it without a motor. If you're not, you need a motor. So yeah, it's like a backpack, right? Backpack goes on it's got a seat on it. So once you get up, you can sit, you're comfortable, and you've got a throttle in one hand that gives you your power. And as you start running, you put tension on your lines, it pulls it up over your head, inflates the cells on the wing, give it power, and you just run into the sky. Then you go fly around. It's great.
That's cool. How'd you get into that?
A couple different people got me into it. My brother is the first one that tricked me into going. When we were in California, we went for just a day of training, and it was without the motor. So we're just running down a hill and kind of flying down this hill. But I originally got into it because I had a big fear of flying when I was a kid. That translated into my adult life, and I wanted to get over it. So I was like, I'm going to learn how to fly. If I know how things operate, if I know how things work, should get rid of that fear for the most part. And now I do it as much as I can. I've got a couple good buddies as well that got me into it as well, with some more of the motor side of things, answering questions and helping me get started.
Yeah, it looks pretty fun. How's landing?
Depends on how much wind there is. The less wind, the harder it is to land, because you're coming down fast and you're running. But overall, like, it's a pretty smooth process once you get the practice in. Because if you think of like how a plane lands, they do the flare at the end, right? When they come in, they flare and they land. You do the same thing. So that flare slows down your speed and helps you to kind of like just plop down, essentially, right? It's not very aggressive or anything. And then I'll also fly with a trike sometimes as well. So you can take off with wheels and things like that and land with wheels. So those are the easiest, most comfortable landings possible.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, man, that looks like fun.
Yeah, if you ever get the chance to, like, it's worth it. It's a lot of fun. Even if you go for like just a tandem introductory flight that you can do for a couple $100, like someone else takes you up and you fly around, it is worth every penny to do it.
You own the equipment, or you just go rent it?
No, I bought all the equipment. Nice thing is it's like the cheapest form of aviation you can get into. So for like all in with training, gear, extra parts, all that kind of stuff, it was like $13,000, maybe something like that, where you want to get into private pilot's license, that's $10,000 alone just to get your license done, right? $8,000 to $10,000. Then you're paying $400 an hour, depending on where you're at, to rent a plane or buy a plane. So it's kind of the cheapest, easiest, and for me, the funnest way to get into flying.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw it's pretty interesting. Do people care? Like, they're out on the beach. Like, are there police for that or something? Or
so there's like certain rules you have to follow that you can't like fly over a populous area. You can't fly directly over people. When we're at the beach, I've only done it twice at the beach so far because I live in St. Louis, so there's not a lot of beaches here. But when we do go down to Florida or something like that, our goal is to stay kind of away from the people. So if people are to the right, we're going to go to the left. We might come back once or twice and kind of fly around. And for the most part, everyone's really cool about it and they enjoy watching it fly around. But, you know, if someone's at a beach vacation trying to relax on the beach, the last thing you want is a 2-stroke motor coming buzzing by you, you know, at 100 feet above you. So we try and be as respectful as possible and avoid crowds and people and stuff like that. But it's real cool. Like where I fly, there's a couple like elementary schools that I'll fly by and seeing like kids outside and they freak out every time they see it because it's not very common. So it's a really cool thing to just kind of fly around. And I know people that'll buy those little army men with parachutes and they'll throw them off to kids like as they're flying by them. It's kind of like just a fun thing to do with it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Anyone watching, go check out Paramotor. You can probably even just Google Justin Dossey and YouTube. You'll see some of the videos. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So let's talk about inbound calls. So Call Porter, are you guys mainly handling all inbound or is it some outbound too? Or what exactly do you guys do there?
So our primary portion of our business is inbound live answering. The easiest way to explain it is we're your front desk receptionist. So we take the calls, we answer as if we're, you know, at your office there. So, you know, if we buy houses, St. Louis, we're going to answer the phone, we buy houses, St. Louis. Then our goal from there is to find out really what's going on. Just like any lead intake specialist would, like our goal is to find out motivation. Do they have any equity? How soon they want to sell? Kind of what repairs have been done to it, if any. And our goal is to get to an appointment on that call. So that way you can spend time building your business and not like playing phone tag, getting appointments in, things like that. But we do have a newer portion of our company where we do lead management as well. So if you're someone who's got 50 or more leads in your CRM and you struggle to keep up with them, you're not following up with them, you're not sending them text messages, phone calls, whatever it might be. If you're dropping the ball on your leads, our agents will also work in your CRM, build rapport with those people and continue to nurture them to try and get them to an appointment for you as well. So that's the somewhat outbound side, but we don't do like a cold calling aspect per se. It's not, we've tried it, but it's not really our forte. We're not, there's better people at it than us.
Okay, gotcha. And that's good. It's interesting you say that too. How about 3 a.m? What happens when someone calls at 3 a.m.?
Oh, we're 24/7. So we opened that probably about 6 months ago. So we're now 24/7. We've got agents that work around the clock. So there's always someone there to take the calls.
Yeah, and that's important too. Well, number one, it's important working with anyone to answer the phone. Some places will answer the phone and they have no clue about real estate.
Yeah.
Which you guys do.
Yeah. So that's, we tried other services that are out there that are not specific to real estate. But, you know, if someone says, hey, I inherited this property and I'm one of 3 heirs to this, you know, so you guys have that info, a typical answering center that's not specific in real estate isn't going to know what they're talking about at all, right? Things are going to get missed. There's not going to be questions asked. So we've done a really good job, I think, of training our agents to ask the questions that are needed. You know, if you've got a renter, cool. How long have they been there? What's their lease look like? Who pays utilities? What's the rent? Things like that. So they're going to go in and dive in and ask those questions to make sure that we give you a good overall picture. That's the nice thing about having agents specifically trained in real estate is being able to answer those types of questions.
Now, I know a lot of it, well, I don't want to say a lot of investors, but some investors have multiple brands too. Can they set up with you guys under one plan with multiple brands, or do they need to set up different accounts for each one, or how's that work?
Ooh, good question. No one's actually asked me that on a podcast before. So what we do is we have like your main master account and then there's sub accounts. But those sub accounts, there's like a surcharge to it essentially. So it's not the full rate of like, say, $500 a month each time. It's 500 and then I think it's like 200 or 250. Don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere around there for additional markets. And then you get a total like allotted amount of minutes that are included. And then if you go over, then there's just the overage charge. But yeah, we can do that as well. We do it with, I think, 3 or 4 people off the top of my head right now. We do that for.
Okay, cool. And then now do you see, because I know a lot of people are like, no, I want to answer the phone during the daytime, but nights where I have a problem. Like, do you see a lot of people who are like, they'll have their phone and then they can switch a button to forward it on off hours? They will come to you guys, or what do you see most people doing?
Yeah, good question. I'd say probably 20% of our clients do that, where the way we have it set up for them to make it easy is wherever their main phone number is hosted, you can just set up a forwarding rule on there. So if it's after 5 p.m., forward it to this number. I'm going to use Resimpli as an example because that's what I'm most familiar with. But in Resimpli on the phone numbers, you can set up call forwarding and routings, and you just turn it on at that specific time between, say, 5 p.m. and 8 a.m. as an example. You can then route those calls directly to us. But I would say probably 80% of our clients right now do send us almost 100% of their calls, with the exception of like if someone's called in multiple times, like they've got an appointment already, sometimes people will forward those to their own cell phone to just continue the conversation there since they've got their own inbound lead or their own lead managers or acquisitions managers that are managing those. They'll then have like those secondary calls forward over to those guys.
Yeah, and anyone listening too, like answering the phone is so important because especially like I'm on the digital side, if you're doing Google ads, they're usually going to click all 3 ads. So if they call the first one, get a voicemail, they call the second one, someone answers. By the time that first guy calls back, if the truly motivated people will deal with the first person they find that seems reputable is not going to rip them off, right? So you want to be that person available when those awesome leads come in, because you're only going to get like 1 out of 10 of them are going to be like shoo-ins, You want to make sure you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's, especially in your business and ours, like there's such a importance of answering the phone call. And it's kind of surprising the amount of investors I meet that don't answer their phone calls and the amount of money they spend on marketing without having some way figured out, right? Like even if you don't hire us, like hire somebody to take your own calls. Otherwise you're missing out on money. Because even if it's like direct mail, like you said, they're Google or wherever they're searching, they're going to go through and 1, 2, 3, they're going to call through. Well, typically, if you have direct mail, you have more than one piece from people at times, right? And for us, like the handwritten aspect, those are usually the ones that get called first, and then, the next one and so on. But you want to be the people that answer the phone call, that are the most attentive, the most available to make sure that you capitalize on those leads and don't lose money because you're missing out on leads.
Yeah, and I know a lot of guys are cheap too. Like $500, oh, that's a lot of money. It's like, no, $500 for a month. That's like you're hiring an employee for like 1/10 of what an employee would cost.
Exactly. For 24/7, right? Like that's always interesting to me, or we'll see that sometimes we're like, yeah, I wanted to bring it in house. And sometimes it makes sense to do that. Right. But I'll just be honest, like we haven't taken a single phone call ourselves on real estate stuff for 5 years. Like, at all. Any of my business partners, anything like that, like everything goes through Call Porter. So, for even if you have one employee full time, let's say on the low end, probably can't hire this up where you're located, I would imagine. But St. Louis, like you could hire someone for like $2,000, $2,300 a month, maybe, to just take those inbound calls. That's only one person. And what if you have 2 calls come in or 3 calls come in all at the same time? 2 out of those 3 are getting dropped or going to voicemail. So the nice thing with us is we've got 25 plus employees that work, 24/7 to make sure that any single call, even if it's multiple calls at the same time, get answered for anywhere from $50 a month to $1,400 a month, depending on your usage. So, can't stress the importance enough of having that call answered, regardless of where it's done.
Yeah, now let's talk about usage too. So do you know what's the average time of a call like on an inbound? Do you know what like the average is?
Yeah, so when we give the averages, we take everything from like take me off the list to an appointment booked and everything in between on there. So I think our average talk time is about 2 minutes per phone call between all of those, where, take me off the list or 45 seconds or less. The appointments, things like that are 7 to 10 minutes on average. So that average that we see kind of in there is like 1.5 to 2.5 minutes or so is pretty standard for just an overall talk time per call.
That's cool. And then, so your $500 package, how many minutes does that include?
That's a great question. We changed it, and I will find it real quick because that is one thing I am horrible about remembering. That includes 100 minutes, which averages to about 40 calls a month.
That's what I wanted to know, like, so people can see how many leads they get, what kind of where they would need to be for that. And that's huge because if that gets you one extra deal out of those 40 phone calls, and that's 40 phone calls too. So, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer on that side.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got tiers, all the way down to like, if you just want messages taken, right? Like you don't want any rapport, you don't want any data collection, you just want us to take a message and send it over. That starts at $49 a month, all the way up to 500 minutes and beyond, if you're someone who regularly hits like 1,000 minutes a month, like there are people like that are out there. Like we can create something custom for you too. For the amount of minutes that you're getting, it really makes it easy to break down and kind of reverse engineer of how much usage you need versus the amount of calls, the amount of time that you would typically see on a phone call.
Yeah, and if anyone's interested in talking about that, is it just callporter.com?
Yeah, callporter.com/schedule is our most common link that you can use, and that'll get you directly in touch with one of our agents there. But you can also check like pricing out at callporter.com/pricing, which is what I had to just find. So you're able to pull it up through there as well. But yeah, either one of those would be easiest.
All right, cool. So now let's talk about, you're growing companies fast, right?
Yeah.
Like you've had an 1,800% increase. You guys got like $7 million in revenue in the last 3 years.
Yep.
What are you doing? Like, what are you doing most people don't get that kind of growth that fast.
The biggest thing with growth that we've seen has been, once you have momentum, don't let it go. Because we've done that. Like we've had times where like we built momentum, then we stopped for whatever reason, right? Like something happened, we made a decision that didn't pan out, then you lose that momentum and you have to try and regain it. It's much more challenging to do that. What we've done very well with, especially on the Ballpoint side, is capitalizing on that momentum and building relationships with not only like partners that we work with, like we've got some really big vendors that we work with that Deal Machine is one of them. We provide all of their handwritten letters that you can get through Deal Machine are provided through us. We're integrated into Simply. We're integrated into REI Sift. So like there's a lot of strategic, partnerships with other companies that have similar values and similar goals that we work with. That's the first aspect of it. The second is creating something or having something that stands out from everybody else in your industry. So for us, you can find other handwriting companies that are out there. There are, right? Like I'll just be 100% honest, there's other answering services. It is what it is. But our goal is to do it better than everyone else and always be innovating. So like one thing you'll see at Ballpoint, and maybe our competitors in the future after they watch this, but we're always innovating and coming up with a new product, a new way of approaching things that is not the typical like yellow letters, the third and final notice, the picture of the house on the postcard, like things that everyone sees, right? Like everyone sees that all the time. Like I get it at my house, you probably get it yours, people that are listening get them at their houses. So our goal and what we've done with Ballpoint specifically is create products that approach the customer in a more relatable way. And so having those good products is kind of our claim to fame, I guess you would say. Like we were the first ones doing handwriting in this space in real estate. But, there's other aspects too on like just company culture, how we grow our teams. The big one is like preemptively knowing what your growth is. So if you're a real estate investor, for example, and you're doing 2 deals a month right now and you want to get to 10 and you send out enough mail or enough marketing to get to those 10 deals, cool. Do you have the team in place to handle it? Do you have the systems in place to handle it? Do you have the knowledge that you're going to need to do that? Or are you building your parachute on the way down, which I do all the time? It's just learn it as you go, right? Trial by fire. But like, do you have the team in place to help you do that as well, to make sure that like there's a big difference between, $30,000 a month in revenue and $150,000 a month in revenue and what you need. So I think that's something we've been really, really good at too, is like preemptively knowing what our growth track is and taking some risks to allow us to get to that point.
Yeah, and you're right too on a team, especially when scaling, because we deal with the same kind of thing. It's like you have to be able to deliver and keep the same quality on things when you grow, especially when you grow quickly too. Totally.
Yeah, because there's times that at Ballpoint where we've had either like we've outgrown our machine capacity, right? Or we're using older machines that are really designed for smaller uses. And this is more on like stamping, inserting, shipping, like all that kind of stuff, right? So our goal has been to kind of know like, okay, here's what we did this month. We saw 20% growth. If we see 20% growth next month, what are we going to need? What are we going to need to do? So yeah, being able to have the team and the know-how to do that. One thing I also forgot to mention too is we pay a lot of money to be in groups that people are better than what we are. Whether if it's in like Collective Genius, which is where we met, whether if it is in a e-com mastermind that we're in, because that's specific to Ballpoint, we sell stuff e-com style. We have spent for the last 5-6 years, like easily $250,000 or more on just coaches, personal development, relationships, things like that. that has ultimately helped us get to where we're at too, because we're learning from people that are way beyond where we're at, and we're taking, bits and pieces of what apply to our business and implementing it ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really good tip too. What's the top coach, or what's the top place you found the most value?
For me personally, my own personal coach, and I'll plug him here because he's awesome, Mike Kitko. He's a guy here in St. Louis, is probably my favorite coach I've had so far personally, mainly because he's the first coach I've worked with that is 90% personal stuff, 10% business, and helped me realize a couple of years ago when I started working with him that hangups or ways you're not showing up in your business, whether if it's leadership, it's your ability to grow a company, whatever it is, typically comes back to something personal, right? Like there's some sort of personal hangup that's causing you to not be direct with your team. There's, you have a fear of money, so you don't want to spend money on marketing. All these different things that come back to personal hangups. That really helped me understand that, the business stuff is cool to learn and great to learn, but if I don't work on myself, I can't implement the stuff that I'm learning. So if you guys are looking for somebody, he has a couple groups that he does. Mike Kitko, just Google him. He's on my Facebook page too, but absolutely fantastic person to work with.
Yeah, cool. And that's interesting too, because you get an outside perspective. Like everyone's always in their head. It's like what I think is going to be best. Then someone looking from the outside that can probe a little bit might get to different things and open up your eyes and be like, oh yeah, I guess you're right,
Yeah, especially I don't know if you're like this, but I get tunnel vision sometimes where I'm focused on a problem and I'm only seeing a couple things, and then I'll explain it to my coach and he's like, well, what about this? Like, oh yeah, that's an easy solution. Why didn't I think of that? Because I'm too close to the problem right now, and having someone else's perspective on things is invaluable.
Yeah. Did you ever do a predictive index?
I want to say yes, but I don't remember what the results were.
I didn't know if you did or not. I was curious what you were classed as.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up because I know it's very familiar. I know the name, but it's probably been a while since I've done it. But that's is that one of the personality ones?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Okay, got it. So I did a similar one recently with actually another coach I'm working with. I work with two right now, but it's called core mapping. I'm a relator entertainer is basically like what my personality and leadership style is. So it's a little bit different than your traditional leaders that you would think of in a company. I'm more shoulder to shoulder with our team kind of stuff is essentially how I handle things. I work directly with our team, or I know our team very well, on a personal level as well. And that I think has helped us build a great team that we have. And
that's good to know that kind of stuff about yourself too. Cause it's okay, here's how I tick. And then here's my faults. Here's what I don't jive with. And then you can kind of work things, and then you can see how the players on your team act too, and find win-win situations and how to communicate properly.
Yeah, especially any company is going to have a multitude of personality types within their company, and if you don't know how to relate to those people, it's not going to work very well. I've worked in companies where you have your alpha type guy that does not relate to anybody and just barks orders all day, and it works sometimes, but it doesn't work for everybody, right? You have to be able to know and understand your team as a whole, how they operate, how they work together, and how they communicate, and how you can fit into that and help grow and advance that company. So yeah, couldn't agree more. When growing a business, you need to don't cut your momentum, right? What are you looking at to see, okay, we got momentum going in the right direction? Because you can always have momentum going, but it's hard to pull back when you have something going and change. But then also, a lot of people in business have shiny object syndrome. It's hey, this is working, but maybe I should switch here because it might work better, and it just crumbles. Yes, I love shiny object syndrome. It's a fascinating thing to me. My rule of thumb, and I'll give an example of what I see with real estate investors with losing momentum constantly. But to answer your question first, I would focus on making sure if you have that shiny object thing, right? We've talked about Deal Machine, right? That's a great example, right? Deal Machine's a great tool. Don't switch everything in your business to Deal Machine just because you heard of it, right? Test it in small batches. Test it as an extra arm to your company, right? If you take what you're doing that that's working, and you see a podcast, or you see a training or whatever it is, you go to an event and you hear about someone doing novations, right? We hear about that a lot in CG. I'm not going to take everything I have and put it all in novations now, right? I'm going to take 5% of, budget or time or whatever, test it, prove the concept, and then scale that up in an effective, smooth manner that's then going to be able to elevate where we're at as a whole, right? Maybe that includes me hiring people. Maybe it includes training our team a little bit better, something like that. But the problem that I'll see is like, especially with like direct mail and coaching. So my brother has a coaching business that I help in, and it's all real estate investors that are doing a couple deals a month. Number one problem we see in there is consistency in marketing. If you're not good at it, your company falls apart, right? Or you're playing, you get momentum, you lose it. So what we'll see a lot of people do is they'll send batch of mail for a month, then they'll wait to get a deal off of that, right? And they'll work the leads, they'll try and get the process going. And then by the time they get a deal and they're closed and they're ready for another lead or another deal, they don't have anything in the pipeline. So consistently marketing in any sort of way is like a great way to stay out of that trap. But, you know, again, same thing as you're doing that. If you hear something brand new, like don't just cut off your main source of revenue to put it all into something else because one person said it worked. Doesn't mean it always will work directly for you. But if it sounds good and you think it's going to apply to your business, like I said, test it in small batches and scale it up gradually to make sure that you don't just like implode your business on itself on a switch of an idea for a shiny object.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because like I see, 5 or 10% of your effort should always be on like R&D and trying other things out. But yeah, don't follow that. You're right. Don't switch your whole business model, because what's working, normally the stuff that's working isn't going to be fun and it's going to be lucrative though. Don't keep trying to switch to the fun stuff. Fun stuff's the hobby, but keep testing the other thing, you know.
Yeah, you know, like direct mail works and it's consistent, but you know, if you notice a drop in response rate one month, you know, we'll see people that will immediately like, well, I'm not doing direct mail anymore. I'm going to move 100% over to text messaging. And it's like, okay, well, you know, what we could look at is what do we need to tweak in your messaging, in your list, in your mail piece? Like, where has that part of your business become stagnant? Where does it need to be refreshed? And then, sure, test the texting, you know, build it up if that's going to work for you. But yeah, just making sure that like you're always testing and tweaking and A/B testing type stuff. Like we do that with our team all the time. So yeah, it's unfortunately more of a problem than should be, but people like new things. So I get it.
Especially investors, like consistency is so big. I talk about this too. Like everything's going to work if you do it consistently. Like the results might be different, but if you do digital or SMS or mailers or cold calling or driving for dollars, like if you do any of those consistently, they will work. Just depends on what scale, but you have to, like you're saying, you can't do one mail drop and get your deal 4 months later and expect to be in business, because then you got to wait 4 more months to get your next deal. It doesn't make any sense.
So we did this in Baton Rouge, or we didn't do this in Baton Rouge. We kept consistent with our stuff this year. So towards the end of the year, we kind of did some tweaking and changing on some stuff. We had to fire an acquisitions person who wasn't doing good. We brought in a new one, and our main partner down there was the guy doing everything. So while we were letting someone go and bring someone else in, we slowed down on our mail, but we did keep it going. And then in January, we hit it hard again, January, February, and March. We maybe got 2 deals under contract in January, February, and March. But once the sales guy was trained up and we kept that marketing flowing through there, since the like middle of March to now, we've got like 12 deals under contract. Those 12 deals would not be there if we did not continue to market January, February, and March. While we were seeing no money coming in, we were seeing a slowdown in the amount of contracts that were being done and deals that were being done because of that. But if we had stopped, even though we were training somebody and getting them in, we would not have, you know, $150,000, $175,000 worth of deals closing over the next 20 to 30 days. So that's like a real life example that's happened to us in the last 90 days that we had to make sure that, you know, even though we kicked in some money, you know, we had to spend a little more than we were wanting to keep that marketing going. It allowed our CRM to continue to build with leads. And now we've got a killer in there, like he's getting a contract a week right now, if not more.
So say when we're testing things, that brings up a good point. How long would you give a test? Say someone's doing digital with us, right? And they're like, hey, I want to do mailers too. How long of a test is a good test to see if it's going to work for them? Is it like 6 months, or like how long is a good indication on the mail side?
Good question. I'll usually test stuff between like 90 days and 6 months, depending on like the aspect of it. Like on the real estate side, I give it a little bit longer because we know like deals take a little more time to pan out, right? Like you don't put money in and get money out 30 days later, typically. It does happen, but it's not like your standard. So we'll look at stuff over like a 90 to 60 day window in our real estate business. On the Ballpoint and Call Porter side, our turnaround time is a lot quicker from like marketing to orders. So we usually give that like 90 days tops before we like make a decision on something. But we're looking at if it helps people anyway. We're looking at like a 3 to 4x ROI on what we're spending for the most part is kind of our metric that we typically do. So if I put 10 grand out and I get 40 grand back, cool, let's scale it. Let's build it up. If I don't, then we're going to cut it quicker before we have a higher amount of loss.
Yeah. And you know what? It's important tracking KPIs and things like that too, like the return on spend. But then also, especially with mail and things too, if you can attribute back to the specific mailers or the time you spent the money, because I know a lot of investors, more the newer guys, if they get a deal in April, they count that as April sales, which really that came from the January
right.
spend.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, especially if it's like mail or, any form of like lag marketing, I guess it's going to take a little time to build. Then yeah, it's important to like, as fun as it is to be like, hey, I got 12 deals in April so far. I know really, okay, I got 4 deals in January, 4 deals in February, 4 deals in March from those marketing campaigns. So very, very important. What we look at is we'll put different tracking numbers on our mail pieces so we can track that really good. Simply does a great job with it, where you can go in, track how many leads came in, the time frame, and start to track your overall ROI long term on it. So yeah, that's a great point to make.
And that's pretty huge if you guys are integrated with that too, because mail's hard to track. But if you guys are integrated with Simply, that's going to track that kind of stuff too, because it's like, okay, April, May, June crushed it. Let's look back and see what efforts we did that created that awesomeness so we can do more and then cut the waste out. So if you're able to like put the attribution together too, that's really huge because you can do more of what worked and cut the waste.
Yeah, absolutely. That's KPIs I didn't understand this, unfortunately, as a young entrepreneur. Now we do. But having those KPIs dialed in on what you're expecting, what you're looking for, and what the ultimate goal is huge.
Yeah. And anyone listening, KPIs are key performance indicators. Basically, you're looking at your stats, finding out, okay, what did I spend? How many appointments came from it? Contacts? How many agreements? All your numbers. You just want to track them all really well. Well, let me ask you this. Who's your actual, like the ideal avatar to work with you? Like what kind of people are a really good fit for Ballpoint Marketing and Call Porter?
Yeah, so Call Porter, I think our average client is someone who is kind of got 2 averages, right? Like the lower end and the higher end. Lower end of our clients, and when I say lower, it's just like less revenue on a monthly basis for us, is someone who's a full-time W-2 employee. Someone who's just getting started in real estate. They're getting their leads out there, but they can't necessarily take their calls during the day or at night. Maybe they're with family. That's kind of like from our $50 to $250 a month clientele. The others are anyone that is really anyone that just needs to answer their phone calls, right? Like we've got clients that do 5 deals a month. We've got clients that do 20 deals a month. It kind of just depends on where you're at in that spectrum. But if you have a need in your team to answer your phone calls and you notice you're missing out on revenue, we want to talk to you. We want to help you. And you can go to that callporter.com/schedule link to book a time with us or send your information over and one of our team members will reach out to you.
Awesome. So basically on Call Porter, you can help any investor, beginner or seasoned.
Honestly, it's the same against both companies. Like I would say at Ballpoint, most of our customers are doing 1 to 3 deals a month, if not more. If you're just getting started though, that's why we introduced the door hangers. It's a low barrier of entry. It's a great, easy thing to do. You just go out, put some door hangers on the houses, get the leads that come back in and close them. But, I would say most of our clients right there are probably in like the 4 to 6 deals a month range that we currently work with. But we've also got people that do way more deals than that too. It just kind of depends on where they're at.
Okay, cool. And then what's the best way to reach out for Ballpoint?
You can go to ballpointmarketing.com, check us out on Instagram. If you place an order through Ballpoint or Call Porter, use the coupon code Motivated Leads. You guys will get 5% off on any of those orders that come through. Just either directly through our websites or Instagram is where we're most active.
Awesome. Last question. What's your top book?
Ooh, top book. Man, that's hard because I'm reading so many of them.
Even one you're reading now, like what's a good one?
All right, so the one I'm reading now, there's 2 different ones I'm reading right now, but these are both like
2 books going at once.
One of them is very like cerebral and you have to think a lot and it takes me a lot longer to get through. It's very dense. This one is much easier to read. But this one's called Mindsight. This one is really good. This one is, it's written by a doctor, but it talks about basically how your brain operates and how to be happy, right? Like how to be consistently happy, how to remap parts of your brains. It talks about like neuroplasticity and how your brain can rewire itself based on like certain things. So if you were naturally a sad person, you can change that by working through some stuff. So that one's interesting. It's very dense, very challenging. This one is by Sadhguru. He's an Indian guy, but it's called Inner Engineering. And it's pretty similar, but it talks a lot about like being present, being in the moment. A lot of like my work that I've done personally is getting through like stress and anxiety and things like that I dealt with a couple of years ago, and being present and understanding like how your brain works and operates and things like that has been super helpful. And it's honestly, I just love reading that stuff. So both of those books, Inner Engineering and Mindsight, are both really, really good.
That's cool. Yeah. Being present too. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that problem.
They do. And it's like, my big goal, because I've got a wife. I've been married 15 years in October. I've got 3 kids from 6 to 12. My goal is to be there, present in front of them, with them as much as I can. And while I can't give them 100% of my time, when they have me, I want them to have 100% of me. If we're there for dinner, I'm trying not to be on my phone. I'm not in work mode. I'm there being with them, hanging out. So focusing on being present and doing that stuff has been a big goal for me the last like 5 or 6 years. Is just how can I be the best dad, best business owner, best person as possible?
Yeah, it's almost like you got to segment your day. You're right. Like at dinner time, it's like I put my phone in airplane mode.
Yeah,
it's like
mine automatically
not look at it.
Mine will like do the do not disturb mode automatically at 6 p.m. So it's like I might miss calls. I'll get to you tomorrow. Like I can get my stuff done during the day and we'll make it work. But right now, I'm with my kids. I'm with my family. That's where I'm going to focus.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, thanks for sharing. Hey,
Yeah,
thanks for coming on. Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun, man.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, and everyone, go check out. We'll put everything in the show notes too on our website, all the links if you didn't get them. But go check out Ballpoint. Go check out Call Porter, and definitely check out Justin's YouTube page. You definitely want to see paramotor.
Yeah, I need to put some more videos up. It's warm enough now where I can go fly more, so I'll be getting some more.
That's cool. Hey, well, thanks for coming on, man. We'll talk soon.
Right. Thanks, man. See ya.
Hey, everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, get out there, crush it, close some deals. We'll see you guys.